Ready? So inshallah we'll get started. نحمده ونصلي على رسول النبي الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيد المرسلين يا خاتم النبيين يا شفيع المذنبين يا أنيس الغريبين يا رحمة للعالمين صلى الله عليه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. For those that have been coming and listening in, we've been talking about Ahlul Bayt for months, and we shifted a little bit, and I'm going to tie it back into Ahlul Bayt again today, inshallah. So last week we were talking about, the signs of the proof of prophethood, and if you look at all of the books of Dalail or the proofs, they all, one of the common aspect of all of them is they talk about the prophecies that Rasulullah told us. And again, because of the environment, I have to keep emphasizing this. He did not predict anything. Predictions are based on calculations and estimations and basically percentages and all of this stuff. Prediction is what the weatherman does, which is also why he's wrong 60% of the time. Yeah, probabilities. So all these probabilities, trying to figure out. Rasulullah told us absolutes. There is nothing that came from his lips except what is the truth. And so we see these prophecies, which is basically, and that's one thing, if you look at English, a prophet is someone who prophesizes. So this is also why they get into this issue of, all these other guys being prophets who have nothing to do with prophethood. In Islam, a prophet is one who receives revelation from Allah, and he gives this news to the people. So the news is, of course, the news of the unseen. Otherwise, he's not a prophet. That is one of the criterias of being a prophet, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught him the unseen. If you look at all of these things that Rasulullah told us, what are they? They're all unseen. Even in the beginning of Surah Baqarah, the beginning of the Quran, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. Those who have certainty of the ghaib. If I don't even know what the ghaib is, then how can I have certainty on it? In our situation, we know the ghaib because Rasulullah told us the ghaib. Rasulullah directly is shown by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for us, our knowledge is very limited. Rasulullah's knowledge is unlimited. And people start trying to compare his knowledge with the knowledge of Allah, which is stupidity when we say these things. We're not making any comparison here. Allah's knowledge is his knowledge, period. The knowledge of Rasulullah is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not hidden from him anything that is in creation. Because he is Rahmatul lil Alameen. He is the mercy to all of creation. How can he be a mercy to something that he doesn't even know? Which is, an aspect of his knowledge that we know from the Quran. Because if he's a mercy to me, then he has to know my condition. A simple example that we, if the doctor doesn't know the condition of the patient, then how can he give him the right medicine? In fact, you give the wrong medicine, and instead of being a mercy, you're a curse. And even if you give the right medicine, if you don't give the right amount, same thing. So Rasulullah is mercy to all of creation, which also tells us Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown him all of creation, and he is seeing all of creation, because he has to be a mercy to that creation. So again, coming back to the aspect of prophecies. So when we look at prophecies of Rasulullah, And there are some prophecies that took place then. You have other prophecies that have already taken place. And then we see prophecies that he made that are taking place in front of us now. And then other prophecies that are to come down the road. And so an example of prophecy directly from the Quran, which is Surah, I mean, of course the Quran is full of this, but prophecy that was fulfilled then is Surah number 21, which is Surah Rum. Let's see. Oh no, it's 32. I'm blanking what number Surah Rum is. But if you look at the surah, right at the beginning, this is while the Muslims are in Mecca, so before the Hijrah. There is a battle that took place between the Romans and the Persians, so the two superpowers of the time. And so the Romans, of course, are Christians. The Persians were fire worshippers and polytheists. So the Quraysh were siding with the Persians because of ideological connection. The Muslims were hoping that the Romans would win, because again, ideological connection. But what happens is that the Persians won. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala right at the beginning, he says, Alif Lam Mim Ghulibatir Rum. The Romans have been defeated. And then he says, in the land close by. Because this was the Byzantine Empire, which basically controlled Sham, or which at that time was Sham, which included today Syria, Philistine, Lebanon, Jordan, and parts of northern Arabia as well. So all of that was under the Roman control. The Persians defeated the Romans, and they defeated them to such an extent that they took the cross that the Christians claim that Jesus was crucified on with them as a sign of their victory. And at this point it seemed as though the Romans are utterly defeated, and there's no way that they're coming back from this loss. So we can try to imagine the boost that this gave to Quraysh, and how the Muslims also felt with this. Because again, you have these two ideologies, two superpowers, one of which is supposed to be more in line with Islam. The other is more in line with the beliefs of Quraysh. And they're going at each other, and the one that opposes Islam is the one that wins. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in the surah, and then he says, fi bid'a sanin, that within a few years, and bid'a sanin is, like 5 to 9, somewhere in there, just a few years, with less than a decade. With Allah is the command, and in the past and in the future, and on that day shall the believers rejoice. And then he goes on, he says, with the help of Allah, he gives victory to whom he will, and he is exalted in might, most merciful. So right at the beginning of Surah Rum. So this is prophesizing the victory of the Romans over the Persians within a few years. But it also prophesizes something else, which is important to note here. So what happens again, you have this victory of the Persians. Within the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, you have a total change in leadership. Heraclius is appointed or takes over as the king. And then gets an army ready. When these verses were revealed, the Quraysh, of course, were laughing, saying, he's saying this, but there's no way, that the Romans are coming back from this kind of defeat. So Abu Bakr, he goes to Abu Jahl, and he makes a wager. And the wager is 100 camels. That, if within this time period the Romans aren't victorious over the Persians, then Abu Bakr would give him 100 camels, otherwise Abu Jahl would owe him 100 camels.
Sorry, this halal,
yeah, I'm coming to that. Yeah, okay. So the question is this halal? You have most scholars who actually all the scholars acknowledge that this wager took place before before gambling becoming haram. So that's one aspect of it. But in reality, for Abu Bakr, this isn't a bet.
That's right.
Because a bet, again, has probability.
This is certainty.
This is certainty. So this is the certainty of Abu Bakr. So it's not even a bet. If you look at the life of Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu, even before Islam, because of his connection to Rasulullah, they were childhood friends, and they remained, friends throughout their lives. There's about 2.25 year difference between the two of them. Abu Bakr being 2.25 years younger, even though he looked older. He grayed early. He would walk with a slight tilt, and so when people would see him, they would always think that he's older than Rasulullah. Of course, Rasulullah, even till the end, looked like a young man. Only 17 of his blessed hair grayed. All the rest of them, and even those gray hairs, when he would put oil in his hair, you couldn't tell. They mixed in, they're just like, so everything was black. So if you look at the life of Abu Bakr, even before Islam, he never drank, he never worshipped the idols, he never did any of these things that would later on become haram because of his connection to Rasulullah. The character, and this is, last night we were at a certain place, I was mentioning some things. Company has an effect. Rasulullah has taught us this. And this is an absolute. And the only people that aren't affected by the environment are the prophets, because they came to affect the environment. All of the rest of us are affected by whatever company we keep. This is why you know a person's ideology by the company he keeps, because he's going to be influenced by that one way or the other. And this is in the hadith in Abu Dawud. So if you look at the life of Rasulullah, even before the declaration of prophethood, because there are those who translate وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى, that you were misguided and we guided you, astaghfirullah. And then there are others who say, that's a strong word, so we'll say you were unaware of the laws of Sharia and we made you aware. Which even is not accurate. And dal has so many meanings in Arabic. Dal also is that tree in the middle of the desert that the people use to guide themselves with. That is also known as dal. That, you go, of course, desert, everything is just open and sand. You have that one tree in the middle, and that's how you know which way you're going. Okay. Dal is also unique we found, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling Rasulullah, we found you alone, because you were alone in your understanding of your Lord, and we guided others to you. So again, if you look at the life of Rasulullah even before the declaration of prophethood, not before he became prophet, because he was already a prophet. We know that. And even if you don't know that intuitively, it's mentioned in the Quran in various ways. But also the hadith where Jabir radiallahu in Bukhari, where Jabir radiallahu asked Rasulullah, when was prophethood conveyed upon you? He says, I was already a prophet when Adam al-Islam was still between clay and water. And there are different narrations on that. Some of them say, I was a prophet, when Adam al-Islam was between clay and water. Doesn't mean that he was a prophet. That's when he was conferred prophethood. If you actually analyze it, because in the other narrations, he says, I was already a prophet. So even before the ingredients to make Adam al-Islam were made, he was already conferred as a prophet. Prophet is one, again, who receives revelation from Allah. He had already received revelation before. And this is in Surah Ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman, allama al-Quran, past tense, khalaqa al-insan, allamahu al-bayan. So, Ar-Rahman, and this is important for us, because unfortunately, you look at a lot of people when they're trying to teach someone the Quran, they're very hard. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught the Quran as Rahman. So Ar-Rahman, he could have used any of his other characteristics, but he didn't. He says Ar-Rahman, the merciful. Allama al-Quran, taught the Quran, khalaqa al-insan. So the one he taught him to, he sent him as insan. And then allamahu al-bayan, the explanation. Why the explanation later? Not because he didn't understand it. He already knew it, but it's like someone who has a PhD and then they're going to become a teacher. Well, you already know your subject, but now you have to learn how to relate that subject to these people who don't know anything. And that's a different art. You may know it at this level, but conferring that knowledge to someone at this level is a very different thing. It's like, simple example, like if me and the brother here were talking medical terms. The terminology and the language we're using is very different than if we're talking to someone who doesn't know anything about medicine. If I try to talk to someone who doesn't know anything about medicine at that level, they're not going to understand. So this is the allamahu al-bayan. And then in Surah Ar-Rahman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about insan again, but that is referring to Adam alayhi salam. The first insan is referring to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Alright. So again, before the declaration of prophethood, when we look at the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is Sadiq al-Amin? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Again, this is not us giving him this title. This is his enemies giving him his title before they decided, oh, he's our enemy. Right? This is before the declaration of prophethood. You have, he never worshipped the idols, to the extent that he would not even eat meat that was slaughtered to the idols. And this is, you have various narrations that mention this. Quraysh, during the time of Hajj, would not go to Arafah. This was, Quraysh said that we are the people of the Haram. Arafah is outside of the Haram. So we, as the people of the Haram, Arafah is not necessary for us for the Hajj. We don't go to Arafah, because we don't leave the Haram. That was their logic. There are various narrations where, again, and this is before the declaration of prophethood, where people talk about seeing Rasulullah in Arafah at the time of the Hajj. So all of these things, he already knows. So, and Abu Bakr is in his company most of the time. Abu Bakr, even before Islam, never did anything without first consulting Rasulullah. He never went on a trip the last person he would see before he left Makkah to go on any business journey or any journey would be Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The first person he would meet when he would come back would be Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this isn't just any friendship. So again, so even before Islam, Abu Bakr is not doing any of these things that would later on be declared as haram, simply because of the company he keeps. And then you have even like Uthman radiallahu anhu. He never drank, he never worshipped the idols, because he kept the company of Abu Bakr. Right? They were very close friends. Abu Bakr is the one who rescued him from his uncle Hakam when Uthman becomes a Muslim, and his uncle wrapped him up in a carpet and lit it on fire on both sides. And Abu Bakr is the one who rescued him and then brought him to his house and kept him there. And then eventually he gets married to the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So again, the company that we keep, because a lot of us, again, we have this mindset, I can hang out with these guys and it's not going to affect me, and that is not how it works.
Like you said, you could either run away with everyone.
Yes. So, brother was saying, like, if you hang out in the store of the perfume, in a perfume store, you're going to get some good smells on you. Same way, if you hang out, if you do septic tank work, you're going to get, the other stuff on you. It's just the way it works. This is the system Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. So again, Abu Bakr, he goes to Abu Jahl and he makes this, it's not a bet, not from his perspective. Abu Jahl is making a bet, because he's thinking of probabilities. Abu Bakr, this is certainty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said it, there's no doubt in it. And ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. No doubt in this book. So Abu Jahl accepts. Because from Abu Jahl's standpoint, okay, again, this is such a overwhelming defeat for the Romans. There is no way they're coming back from this. Abu Bakr never collected on it, though, because the day that the news that the Romans defeated the Persians came was the same day that the Muslims were celebrating the victory of Badr. So Abu Jahl was already dead because he was killed in Badr. So this is where, because a lot of people, when they read these verses, they think, the Muslims are going to rejoice at the victory of the Romans. That's not what the rejoicing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning here. He says, within a few years, and with Allah is the command in the past and in the future, and on that day shall the believers rejoice. He doesn't say what they were going to rejoice for. The rejoicing of the Muslims wasn't the victory of the Romans. Yes, the Romans won, but the rejoicing of the Muslims was that they had defeated the Quraysh in Badr.
It would make more sense, because why did they care if the
Yes.
Roman wins or the Persians?
Exactly.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, from our
From
standpoint,
perspective.
because from our standpoint, okay, yeah, they won, but now they're going to come and fight us.
Exactly. And they both kafar, so it
Yes,
doesn't matter.
yes. But, and the reason I emphasize this point is because I've heard a lot of people, when they talk about this, the Romans won. No, that's not the rejoicing. The rejoicing was Badr. Okay. So this is a prophecy that was made then and fulfilled then. So this falls into that category. Then, we have so many prophecies where, again, we know, okay, Rasulullah sallallahu said this, and we look through history, and this is exactly what happened. And we mentioned some of those before. I'm going to mention the Battle of Nahwan again. This is when, Ali is fighting against the Khawarij. So, and in fact, Rasulullah ﷺ had already prophesied the Battle of Jamal, the Battle of Safin, and the Battle of Nahwan. So Nahwan is later, Jamal, because and it's interesting here, and this is an important point to know, so I'll mention Jamal first anyway. I'll just kind of jump back to that. One day, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is sitting with his wives, and he says to them, he says, I don't know which one of you the dogs of Hawab will bark at. And, you know, there is a, you know, kind of struck all of the wives as, you know, what's this mean? And Aisha, radiallahu, you know, another narration, Aisha, radiallahu, when he said this, kind of, you know, like that laugh under your breath. You know, who's that going to be? And he says to her, he says, don't let it be you. So he makes this indication as well. So this is what he's saying in front of the wives. To Ali, he says that there will be an issue between you and Aisha, and when it occurs, treat her gently and return her to her place safely. The most important point to understand here is, which a lot of people overlook, when Rasulullah says, I don't know, it doesn't mean he doesn't know like we don't know. It means he can't tell you. So for the person listening, you know, it's as if he doesn't know. He knows, but he just can't tell you. This is what he's saying to the wives. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had not given him, he has the knowledge, but not given him the permission to tell which one it would be. But to Ali, who is the door to the city of knowledge, he told him, it's the same incident. So if I take him saying, I don't know, as we don't know, then how could he tell Ali? And so you have to weigh all of this together. People just say, oh, see, like in Bukhari, Rasulullah said that I don't know, you know, the knowledge of 5 things. And one of which, and simple one of which is, you know, and one of that is life and death. When will death come to you? Okay, well, see, the companions, they understood what he meant by that. Don't go up to him and ask him, when will I die? All right? Because in the battle, right before the Battle of Badr, since we were talking about Badr, he told the companions where Abu Jahl would fall, where Utbah would fall, where Shayba would fall, where Walid would fall. 14 of them he took by name. So-and-so will fall here, so-and-so will fall here, so-and-so will fall there. And Abdullah ibn Masud, after the battle, went and looked. And he said they didn't fall an inch this way or an inch that way. Exactly where Rasulullah said they would fall. So if he's not given that knowledge, then how is he telling us this? Again, you know, him saying, I don't know, is an indication for the people that are being addressed, don't ask him these questions. Because he doesn't have the permission to give that to you. So, again, in Jamal, he makes these prophecies, and we see them all being fulfilled. To the extent that when the dog started barking, as Aisha was on the way, and the dog started barking, she remembers what Rasulullah had said. She asked, where are we? Someone said that this is Hawab, and then she tells her the generals of the army, which is Abdullah ibn Zubair, Zubair bin Awam and Talha bin Ubaidullah, radiallahu anhuma, that we need to go back. And they said, look, we've come this far. And then Marwan, who was in the army, paid some people to swear to her by Allah that, no, this isn't Hawab, that person was mistaken, this is some other place. And then we also see Ali radiallahu fulfilling the command of Rasulullah, because in the middle of the battle, because the battle starts in the middle of the night, in the confusion, because the hypocrites from this side attacked the other camp saying that Ali sent us, and the ones from this side attacked the other camp saying Aisha sent us, when no one sent them. But they wanted to create confusion.
False flag.
Yes, false flag. So, you know, false flag is not a new thing. This has been going on, you know, forever. So in the middle of the night, the battle begins, you know, because everyone's defending themselves now in the confusion. Ali notes, because Aisha radiallahu anha, she gets into her hawdaj on her camel, and they attack her camel. And he sees them attacking her camel, and he sends his men to go in, protect her. Amongst his men were the two brothers of Aisha radiallahu anha. Muhammad bin Abu Bakr, who Ali himself raised, and Abdul Rahman bin Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Both of them were in the army of Ali. So he sends her brother and another man to go and protect her, because by the time they had reached there, the hypocrites had hamstrung her camel. They had cut the Achilles tendon of the camel, or actually the hamstring tendon there, and the camel started to fall. And so her brother caught her. And then Ali rides up, and as he's riding up, she sees him riding up, and she says that may Allah forgive you. And he says to her, he says, were you hurt, oh my mother? Because she is Ummul Mu'mineen. She is the mother of the believers. And she in return says, may Allah forgive you. Now these are exchanges of words of people that have affection for each other. And then after the battle, Ali exactly as Rasulullah had said, had Muhammad bin Abu Bakr and another soldier return him to Medina safely. After which she did not get involved in the remaining politics for the next several years. We're going to come to another point that she did get involved in later on. But again, Rasulullah told us all of these things, and it's interesting because in the Battle of Nahwan, and this is a point that we've talked about quite a bit, again, Rasulullah prophesied that not even 10 of the men of Ali would be martyred, and not even 10 of the men of the Khawarij would be left alive. And exactly as he foretold happens. And, but on the way there, he meets the priest, the astronomy priest, who says, oh, please, because he liked Ali, and said, don't go because the star of the Muslims is not out and you will lose. And so when Ali starts asking him questions about the stars and he can't answer, and then he starts asking him questions about the movement of the earth and he can't answer it. And then he tells him, he says, look, everything I do is under the guidance of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Rasulullah has already told me that not even 10 of my men will be martyred, and not even 10 of their men will survive. And exactly as Rasulullah said, and exactly as Rasulullah described their leader, everything went down exactly as he said. So, there are thousands of prophecies, right? Various things that have happened, again, things that are happening now, things that are about to happen soon, and then even a little later on, right? So, like, the soon thing will be, the mountain of gold, because, he told us the Euphrates would dry up. And if you look at the Euphrates in Iraq, it's pretty much dry. He told us about the collapse of the currency of Iraq, about the collapse of the currency of Sham, and the collapse of the currency of Misr, of Egypt. And we're seeing, two of them we've already seen, one of them is in process. And you look at, the Egyptian money is dwindling. And then, the drying up of the Euphrates, which is again happening, and the mountain of gold that will come from that, and, the war that will spark. And what we're seeing now may be the beginnings of that war. So that will simply be, like we say here, the straw that broke the camel's back. And then you'll see, the Malhama, which is the major war. And then, of course, we know Mahdi al-Islam and Isa al-Islam and, Dajjal and all of this. But one of the other things, and this is how I'm going to tie this back to what we were talking about before. One day he's giving the khutbah. And Imam Hassan al-Islam walks into the masjid. And he's, a toddler. 3, 4, maybe 5 at the most. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam leaves the khutbah, picks him up, brings him and sits him beside him. And then he looks at his son, his grandson, and he looks at the people, and he looks at his grandson, and he looks at the people, and he says to the people, he says that, Inna ibni hadha sayyidun, that this son of mine is the master of men. He is sayyidun, he is your sayyid, he is your leader, he is your master. Why? He also explained what he would do. He says, because of him there will be peace between two large groups of, there will be reconciliation rather. There will be reconciliation between two large groups of Muslims. So when we were talking about Imam Hassan alayhi salam, we mentioned this, right? You know, after Ali radiallahu anhu was martyred, Imam Hassan alayhi salam becomes the Khalifa. He organizes a very large army to go and deal with the situation in Sham. And they go, and his army goes, and then Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, who is the leader in Sham, when he sees this army coming, he asks Amr bin al-As radiallahu anhu, he says that, what will happen if we fight? He says, many people will die. He says, well, maybe it's better that we don't fight. So he sends 2 men from Quraysh, both of whose name were Abdurrahman. They were companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These are all companions. If you look at all of the companions that were on the side of Muawiyah, and there weren't very many of them. All of them were companions who had entered Islam in the last days after Fatih Makkah. You don't have any companions who were before, with the exception of maybe one, and even they weren't there willingly. They were there, you know, one of them, when the battle was going on in Siffin, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam prophesied the martyrdom of Ammar bin Yasir radiallahu anhu. And he said that a rebellious group will kill you. And he also said that whoever kills you and takes your spoils will be from the fire. And so when Ammar radiallahu is martyred, fighting alongside with Ali radiallahu, and this is one of the companions mentioned this to Muawiyah radiallahu, he asked, well then, you know, actually the companion said, he said that I was waiting to see what would happen to Ammar radiallahu anhu, and you know, before I started any fighting, because he didn't fight until after that. So he asked me, he said, then why are you here if you know this? He said, because the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told me to honor my father, and my father is here, so I'm here. He said, even though I know that the other side is right. But so that's why he was there. But so when Imam Hassan al-Islam comes, and again we've talked about this not too long ago, you know, Muawiyah then when he sees this army, he knows. And Imam Hassan al-Islam is in a position of supremacy. You know, he knows that, you know, he will win. With the army that he has, he will win. But it's going to cost a lot of lives before he wins. And so when the opportunity comes to save the blood of the Muslims, he accepts the opportunity under conditions. And we've talked about those conditions. You know, five, some people say 6, mainly 5 conditions that were laid out. Because these 2 came and said, you know, Muawiyah, with a blank sheet, and said that he says, you know, whatever terms you want, he's willing to give so long as he becomes the ruler. So Imam Hassan al-Islam said, fine. And he told the people later, I did this, you know, to safeguard the blood of the Muslims. This is actually where the term that Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah comes from. This is where it comes. A lot of people, and I wish Sharwan was here today, probably has to work, but you know, because he'd asked this, and I'll repeat it next time as well. But this is where the term comes from. Because you have, you know, in the Battle of Siffin, you had Shi'an Ali, which were the supporters of Ali, and you had Shia and Muawiyah, which were the supporters of Muawiyah. This is not modern day Shia. Shia here simply means group. So the supporters of Ali were known as Shia and Ali, the supporters of Muawiyah were known as Shia and Muawiyah. So those Shia and Ali eventually become Shia and Hassan, because he is the leader now. So now when this reconciliation takes place, because if you look at the basic aqidah of both sides here, it's the same. So when this reconciliation takes place, the union of these groups became known as Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So the true supporters of Ali and the true supporters of Imam Hassan alayhimus salam are part of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So this is how the term comes into place. And so, so that's an important point also to note. So again, here now, when Imam Hassan Islam lays out the terms, first term is that you will rule according to the Quran and the Sunnah. Second term is that the cursing of Ali from the minbar has to stop, because this was part of their khutbah, where we recite Inna Allah ya'muru bil adl wal ihsan, where Umar bin Abdul Aziz replaced that cursing with this ayat of the Quran. So they would be cursing Ali, and they wouldn't simply, and cursing here, some people try to minimize it by saying, oh no, this was simply like a political kind of refutation, yes, which it was not, because if you look at even in say Muslim and say you see where they're saying, why don't you send Lana on Abu Turab? Well, Lana is not a small thing. Literally, this is what they were saying. Abu Turab, radiallahu, of course, is the nickname of Ali, radiallahu. It was his most beloved name because the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave him this name. So even in there, Imam Hassan Islam compromises, because Muawiyah said, I can only speak for myself, I can't speak for anyone else. And he said, fine. He said there will be no retaliation against the Shia and Ali and Shia and Hassan. And he said, fine. There will be, and the people of the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning the families of Imam Hassan and the families of Imam Hussein al-Islam, were not subject to following the orders of the appointees of Muawiyah. So his governors and mayors and whoever they were in whatever authority, and the generals and all, had no authority to order this household anything. And then the last was that he would not appoint anyone as his heir for rulership, and that the rule would come back to the Shura. So he agreed to all of these, even though they were not, because even Imam Hassan al-Islam, he says, who will guarantee these? And these two Abdul Rahmans, they said, we will guarantee them. However, they were not fulfilled, and as I've said before, those are things that we're going to get into later because of certain conditions. However, them not being fulfilled does not exclude someone from being a companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, like some people try to do, and we'll get into that as well, because the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam are not masum, but they are mahfuz, and there is a huge difference there. Even the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the Ahlul Sunnah Jama'ah standpoint, are not masum like the prophets are masum, but if you look at this household, if you look at the cloak, those that were taken under the cloak, meaning Ali, Fatima, Hassan and Hussein alayhi salam, they're not masum, they are mahfuz, but they are also like companions. They are mahfuz in that they made mistakes, but they always repented for those mistakes. Here you have, they really, if you look at everything and really analyze it, they didn't make any mistakes. And they are those perfect examples for us. So that this is the example we strive for, knowing that we're going to fall short, but that's still what we strive for. So again, this is the prophecy that I wanted to use to reconnect us back to where we were before we diverged a little bit. But all of these other things are also important, you know, and they're basic things that we need to know and understand. So when this agreement takes place, and Imam Hassan, as we mentioned several weeks ago, when he returns to Medina Munawwara, before returning, of course, he was attacked by his own people who were upset at him for doing this. And then he eventually comes back to Medina Munawwara, and or rather I should say some of his own people. You know, because he told them, he said that, you know, when you took allegiance with me, you agreed to make war with those who I make war with, and to make peace with those who I make peace with. And now I've made peace, so you need to agree to this as well. But when he returns to Medina, as we mentioned before, an important point to keep reminding us, Marwan is the governor of Medina. Marwan is the enemy of Ahlul Bayt. And I'm not going to go into his history again, but he, at every turn, made things very difficult for Imam Hassan al-Islam. He did not, you know, he could not open his mouth without cursing Ali, or Ahlul Bayt. Every khutbah, you know. In fact, life wasn't lawful for him unless he was cursing them. Yeah, that's just the way that was his mindset.
How's
And
that possible? What? This is the.
yeah,
It's just, I don't.
yeah. I mean,
still be Muslim. How is it possible?
well,
Or
yeah. Well, you can't be mu'min and do that.
Can't be.
Yeah, you can't be. You can't. Anyone who has animosity to Ali is not mu'min. He's munafiq.
Okay.
So that's.
Okay.
So there are people who defend Marwan. These are the people who worship authority. These are the people who worship the kings. And because Marwan was a king, you know, he's governor, and then eventually he will become the king. These are, you know, those are the people who try to defend him at every turn and every corner. Even though, you know, when I'm saying these things, you know, they try to say, oh no, this is just in the history books, and the history books don't matter. No, this is in the hadith. This is in, say, Muslim. I mean, it's very clear in there. This was, you know, and even if it wasn't in those hadiths, all of these other narrations are so overwhelming that you can't deny them. It's not just like one person saying this. This is like, I mean, this was common knowledge that this is who he is. You know, if you look at the way he's, you know, I mean, literally like a snake, the way he got in, and how he eventually rose to power. You know, and well, I shouldn't even say literally like a snake, because even snakes have more character than that.
Opportunist.
Yeah.
A true politician, opportunist.
Yeah, modern day politician, exactly. Have no religion, just how to attain power and money. That's it. That's their whole objective, is power. And so when you look at Marwan, the reason, or one of the reasons that he was kept in that position was that he was an effective administrator. But from an Iman standpoint, he was zero. I mean, and we've talked about this, you know, we talked about this a couple of years ago. Like, there's this so-called scholar in Pakistan who, when he was talking about fiduq, the issue of fiduq, he comes up with the statement that Bibi Fatima, salamullah alayha, she was, it was her khata, astaghfirullah, her mistake. She was mistaken when she asked for fiduq. I mean, just the level of stupidity. And then...
And disrespect.
Disrespect, yes. And then when he's challenged on this, he doubles down, which is exactly what you expect from these people, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sealed their hearts. Because these are lines you don't cross. If you cross that line after knowing, see, it's one thing, if a non-Muslim is disrespectful, because he doesn't believe, right? For him, that door of repentance is still open because he could one day become Muslim and believe. He doesn't know. But once you know, okay, you know who Rasulullah is, you know who his daughter is, and then you're going to make statements like this, your heart is sealed. You are dead before you died. There is no repentance for you. That is it.
You make a decision between Iman and between your ego.
Yes.
The ego comes first.
Exactly.
Because you were right, you said it.
Yeah.
And your ego is...
Yeah, so the ego...
Same as shaitan.
Exactly. Because that ego comes into place, and I've never seen anyone humiliated who apologized. The ones who are humiliated are the ones who are arrogant. When they make a mistake. Those are the ones you see that are eventually humiliated. They're humiliated even then, but it becomes more obvious later on. Anyone who apologizes is never humiliated. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always picks him up. And especially when it comes to the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's a incident like Imam Zayd, who is the son of Imam Zayd al-Abidin, who is the son, of course, of Imam Hussein al-Islam. So Imam Zayd is the uncle of Imam Ja'far Sadiq. There was only 6 years difference between the two of them. He is the much younger brother of Imam Muhammad Baqir. So Imam Ja'far Sadiq, teacher of Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, and like hundreds and thousands of scholars of all fields, including sciences, what we think worldly sciences, as well as religious sciences. Imam Muhammad Baqir, amongst the teacher of Imam Abu Hanifa, amongst the teacher of Imam Malik, and so many other scholars. Imam Zayd is the Pir or Murshid. He is the Sheikh, the one whom Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah gave Bayt to. And about Imam Zayd, because he led an uprising against Banu Umayyah, against Hisham bin Abdul Malik, and he was martyred in that uprising. I won't go into the details of that right now. So people started, because he fought against the ruler, so people started saying bad things about him. Because there's this notion, especially these days with certain kingdoms that push this notion that, you can't say anything against the leader. He is sacred.
How convenient.
Yeah, he is sacred. You can't do anything against him.
How convenient.
Yeah, yes.
That's a door to hell.
Exactly. So this was an ideology that was actually pushed by Banu Umayyah, and then when Banu Abbas came along, they took it and ran with it. It was
serves very well.
Yes. The real leaders, it's very convenient for them. So of course Imam Zayd leads this uprising against the leader. So later, people start saying bad things about him. And so someone later on, and this is in the books of Rijal. Books of Rijal are books in which you have the names of narrators of a hadith and their histories and their background, whether their memory was good, whether they had ever lied, all of these other things, and who said what about them.
Very important to know.
Yes.
It's sahih and not sahih.
Yes.
Because of those things.
Yes. So yeah, and that's the brother saying that, for those that didn't hear on the phone, these are important things to know, because that goes into, whether the hadith is classified as Say or Hasan or Gharib or Daif or Mawdu or what. Various other criteria or labelings of the hadith. So when Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salam, who did not lead any uprising directly, if you look at Imam Ja'far Sadiq, he taught these scholars so that they could teach and spread the true message. And he isolated himself from all the politics in such a way that it made it very hard for them to attack him. But even then, in the year 148, they eventually poisoned him. Mansur from Banu Abbas poisoned him. You know, and if you look at Ahlul Bayt, they were all, you know, you get a list of all of them who were poisoned and who poisoned them. And Imam Hassan al-Islam will also eventually be poisoned. But coming back to Imam Zayd. So Imam Jafar Sadiq, about Imam Zayd, he said, he was asked about Imam Zayd, and he says about him, and this is a similar statement that Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah had made about him. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah said about Imam Zayd that I've never met anyone more knowledgeable and more on the sunnah of Rasulullah than Imam Zayd. Imam Jafar Sadiq, when he was asked, he said that there was no one from Ahlul Bayt who was more knowledgeable or on the sunnah of Rasulullah than Imam Zayd. So one time some person in front of him, he was in some caravan, they were going somewhere, and some person in front of him made a derogatory statement about Bibi Fatima salamullah alayha. And Imam Zayd starts crying, you know, to the extent that his beard is wet. And he says that, is there no one who will defend the honor of the leader of the women of Jannah? Is there no one who will defend the honor of Rasulullah? Because Rasulullah said that whatever hurts her, hurts me. And he says, is there no one who will defend the honor of Allah? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, says that whoever hurts in the Quran, right after Surah Salah, Ayat Salah, in Surah Ahzab, that he says, whoever hurts Allah and His Messenger. How do you hurt Allah? You can't hurt Allah. But to hurt the ones that He loves, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this is my hurting. And so when he says this, one person from the caravan comes and sends that man to Jahannam, as should have happened. So, but if you read, amongst the prophecies are also the prophecies of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, talking about what will happen to his Ahlul Bayt, and how the women of the Ahlul Bayt will be taken as prisoners, which will happen after Karbala. He mentions all of these things. So, you know, but again, these are not just proofs of his prophethood, but also lessons for us, that even knowing all of this, he doesn't tell, you know, Imam Hassan al-Islam that, oh, you know, just go and live an easy life, go somewhere else and live an easy life. Or to Imam Hussein al-Islam, oh, don't go to Karbala. In fact, he tells him to go to Karbala. He says, don't go, he didn't tell him, don't go to Karbala and avoid all this grief. All of this is being done so that Islam can reach us in its reality, in its purity. So, I'm actually going to end a little early today. Any questions? There are some things, as I mentioned, I'm going to cover later on because, you know, I have to kind of give the background to some things as well. Some of those who have been listening for a while already have the background, but it just needs a refresher, and then we'll go forward. But next time, inshallah, we'll talk about Imam Hassan al-Islam a little bit more detail, and about his martyrdom, which is, you know, interesting, his conversation between him and his brother Imam Hussein al-Islam, as he is, you know, literally vomiting up clots of blood because he was poisoned. So, any questions? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us and fill our hearts with His love and the love of His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those whom they love. And may he, protect our brothers and sisters that are being oppressed throughout the world, and remove those that are the oppressors. Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Yeah, some brothers in Atlanta that want to listen in. So, yeah.
You usually send a text in case somebody wants to.
Yes. You're part of the,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Yeah.